Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're so excited to have you here and so blessed to have you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Murray Penner. I'm the U.S. Executive Director for the Prevention Access Campaign. We are the organization behind the U equals U movement, undetectable equals untransmittable. So, I'm excited to be with you guys and talking today and sharing some of the work that I'm doing and sharing my personal story. Just happy to be here. So thanks for the invitation to talk to you all.
Awesome. Can you tell us like quickly like where did you gives you where did that come up? Like what's the story behind that?
Wow. So U equals U, that's a long, journey to get to some incredible science. But, it all started back in the early days of antiretroviral therapy when, doctors were giving AZT to pregnant mothers to try to stop mother to child transmission, right? And there was success with that. So we've known for a long time that antiretroviral treatment at least interrupts transmission of HIV. And most recently, there have been 4 major studies that were conducted in the early 2010 era that concluded in about 2016, demonstrating with, I think it's over about 125,000 condomless sex acts, that if the person with HIV is undetectable, if they have an undetectable viral load, which means the level of HIV is so low that it can't be detected by most lab tests. It doesn't mean HIV is gone. It just means it can't be detected via lab tests. If you can get to that undetectable level, you don't transmit HIV to sexual partners. I mean, the studies prove that there were no transmissions when people with HIV were undetectable and they had condomless sex with their HIV negative partners. So it's incredible news. I mean, it is so incredible that it frees people with HIV from the stigma and the shame and the fear of transmitting to sexual partners. Not to mention that treatment keeps the person with HIV healthy, and lets you live a long life, just like somebody who is HIV negative. So it's incredible in terms of the advancements. And then you add on PrEP on the other side, for HIV negative people. And, that is also about taking a pill once a day, just like for treatment. And that prevents HIV acquisition, 99% effective. U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable, is 100% effective according to CDC. PrEP is 99% effective. And that's if you take your medication every day as directed, right? As a doctor says. So you got to stay engaged in care. You got to go to the doctor, get your labs done, all that kind of stuff. But it really equalizes HIV negative and HIV positive. It's sort of a status neutral, if you want to call it that, to where we're all the same. If you're HIV positive, you go over to treatment. If you're HIV negative, you go over to PrEP and you stay healthy.
So you're saying, which is really amazing, and it kind of boggles us because effectively we can eradicate HIV and AIDS within less than a generation, right? Can be
Absolutely.
not a problem.
Think about it. Dr. Anthony Fauci, and I know everybody here knows who Dr. Fauci is, right? Because of COVID. He says, we've got it on tape, he says that U equals U is the foundation of being able to end the epidemic. So think about that. If you can get everybody who is living with HIV to an undetectable status, there would be no more transmissions. There's nobody that has a viral load that is, detectable and that they can transmit. Now you add PrEP onto that because let's be honest, not everybody is going to be virally suppressed, right? So let's add PrEP to it to where people who are HIV negative and, having sex with HIV positive partners, that's another layer of protection. So you've got these dual layers of protection that are preventing new transmissions. And if we could get as many people as possible onto PrEP and as many people as possible onto treatment so that their viral loads were undetectable, yeah, we would end the epidemic. We wouldn't have any new transmissions. Now, what it doesn't do, it does still require all of us who are living with HIV to continue to take their medication, and it requires everybody who's HIV negative to continue to take their PrEP. So that is, that's one of the things that still has to take place. But there's also really new and exciting treatments coming that can shorten or lengthen the amount of time between your medication. Long-acting injectables. So it's, a shot in each butt, in each butt cheek once a month. And you don't have to worry about your HIV medication once a month. So there's good advances in treatment that will make it easier to stay undetectable than just taking a pill once a day. You do have to stay, pretty adherent on both PrEP and on treatment in order for all of this to be effective.
Yeah. All right. So my next question is, because that's like amazing news, because for the gay community, a big part, gay men and transgender and other parts, this has been what the gay community is dealing with. This is like the parameters. We are just dealing with HIV and AIDS, right? So kind of like a top down and a bottom up kind of approach. Why isn't this being sung from the rafters from the local governments and everything, like really pushing it? And then from the bottom up, why isn't people saying, oh, this is amazing. I need to, we need to make sure everyone is, like you put it, neutralized.
Yeah, so that's a complex question, but it's a really great question. First of all, I think one of the factors that is really impacting all of this and why we don't get to the place of, ending the epidemic is stigma, HIV stigma, right? So we all know that, there's this long-standing stigma about people with HIV. You probably hear it, you've probably seen it, people with HIV are dirty. Have you ever seen on an app, for instance, if you're on a dating app and, people are saying, oh, are you clean? How stigmatizing is that? Well, yeah, I took a shower today, yeah, I'm clean. but just HIV is stigmatized in general. And let's be honest, so is talking about sex, Lots of doctors don't like to talk about sex. Families don't like to talk about sex. And so because this is a sexually transmitted, disease, so to speak, we don't like to talk about it, which is ridiculous because we all have sex and we all want to have safe and enjoyable sex. So why not, talk about the tools that are there to, keep you safe and keep you healthy. And that includes even STIs. So, I know that sometimes people will say, well, doctors will say this, I don't want to tell my patients about U equals U because then they'll start having condomless sex.
Don't even start.
Well, guess what? People are already having condomless sex. They also say, oh, I don't want to say this because if I tell them they'll have condomless sex and they'll get STIs. Well, guess what? People are already getting STIs. So the important thing in all this, again, I'm going to keep coming back to this, is to stay engaged in care and to stay, in touch with your doctor and to monitor your labs. When you go in to get your your viral load tests, when you go in to get your PrEP tests to see if you're HIV negative still, get your STIs checked at the same time. Get checked for STIs. And if you've got, gonorrhea or chlamydia, you can get treated for that stuff. So stay engaged in care and you'll stay healthy. Back to your question. Sorry, I got off on
this is
kind
great.
of rambling there, but I think that providers are afraid to talk about this. They're afraid to talk about sex. They're afraid to, suggest that people can maybe have condomless sex. I think the other piece is even amongst the gay community, I think there's a lot of stigma still about people with HIV beyond, again, on the apps, you can see these conversations happening all the time. You get blocked when you disclose your status or tell somebody your status, those kinds of things. And so I think until we really get down to the level of being able to talk about HIV like it's anything normal, like, okay, yeah, I have high blood pressure. If you can say it like that and there's not stigma associated with it, I think people will start being more comfortable with going to the doctor, being on meds, having a bottle of, um, Truvada laying around if they're on PrEP, or a bottle of Jaluca laying around if they're on treatment. And just like, okay, I don't have to hide my medicine. I don't have to hide my status from, my family members, my friends, those kinds of things. And so we have a lot of work to do to get people to sort of normalize what it means to live with HIV. Because honestly, I've been living with HIV for 35 years, and I feel like I'm as healthy as the next person right next to me. And so it works if you work it, I guess. And so there's just so much to do, though. We just got to talk about it. And that's what frustrates the heck out of me is, organizations, health departments, they don't want to talk about it as if they're going to like cover it up and it's not going to happen. Well, guess what? This is already happening. People are having sex. People are getting STDs. People are acquiring HIV, unfortunately. And it's because we're not open enough and we're not talking about the tools that are there at our disposal, really. I mean, in the US, there's no reason that you can't somehow get, services and help to get to a place where you can get the services that you need.
Yeah. And so thank you so much. Really.
Well, no, you're diving in. I love it.
Thank you so much for doing this and for talking about this, because I just want to express like how important it is that you're doing this, because in our community we have chemsex going on rampantly, and that's something, for whatever reason, the larger community doesn't understand it, doesn't know about it. There's very little harm reduction treatment. There's little going to addictions therapists. They don't understand it. So we have a population here that is really suffering and dying needlessly, right? Needlessly. And this, what you're telling right now, really could be a tool for people here in our community to survive. So my question to you is chemsex. And speaking to our people right here in Bergen County, what do you have to say, and what are your thoughts on all this?
Well, again, just like we know people are having sex, we know people are, partying and playing. We know that exists, and it's like we don't talk about it. And again, there's stigma associated with it, right? I mean, and people make the choices that they make, and they should be, embraced for whatever choices they make. The important piece is, again, and I'm going to hit it again, get involved in care, whether care means a doctor and a medical, professional that's going to treat your HIV, or whether it means trying to get into some sort of addiction services or behavioral health services where you can get help for, your challenges with using meth. And maybe it's not a challenge. Maybe it's okay with you and it works for your life. And if that's the case, how can you find the tools to keep you as healthy as you can, right? As can be there. So, if you know that medication is a challenge for you, taking medication every day is a challenge for you, check into the long-acting injectable, for instance. Check into the once-a-month piece. If you're gonna be using meth and playing and having a good time, if you can still get to the doctor once a month and get that shot, you can stay undetectable, and you're not going to transmit HIV to your sexual partners if you're HIV positive. PrEP is a little bit different. We don't have PrEP yet. That's long acting, but it's coming too. So we'll have the same option for PrEP pretty soon, which is going to be amazing, because you're not going to have to worry about taking a pill every single day if you go and get the shot. I know some people don't like shots in their butt. I don't, because I got a skinny butt. So, so there's not much padding back there. But, it is about talking about this stuff, right? And people are going to make the choices they make, and we shouldn't be judging people, because once you start judging people for the choices they're making, whatever those are, that's when people sort of shift away to, you know, being secretive and feeling shamed, and there's stigma associated with it, and they don't want to go to the doctor because the doctor's going to judge them, or whatever those kinds of things happen. So, you know, we just got to be really, really, really thinking about this all in a very different way. And it's the judgment and the stigma and the shame of, you know, whether it's using meth, whether it's using cocaine, whether it's even smoking weed. Sometimes, you know, sometimes people are smoking weed and just having a good time. Okay. And, you know, I mean, there's still ways to be safe. There's still ways to take care of yourself. The important thing is to have a good support network, be engaged in care, whatever care is for you, whatever you need to, you know, stay healthy, and have fun, and, you know, just be yourself.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So at this point, I just want to ask you, like, any questions for us or any other stuff you want to add to this conversation?
Wow. Well, you know, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about, you know, what you all are doing to address stigma and how you're like trying to fight that, because I mean, let's think about this for a little bit. That is the reason that so many people, now there's other reasons, don't get me wrong, there's other reasons that people can't get into care. Sometimes that, you know, you don't have health insurance and you can't get anybody to cover your meds, or you can't get anybody to cover the cost of your visits to a, you know, to a psychiatrist, or whatever, mental health needs, whatever. There's lots of reasons. Sometimes you don't have a house, a roof over your head. Sometimes you don't have, you know, enough food to keep you healthy, and those kinds of things. And those are big challenges. So supporting the whole need, all the needs of somebody who is, you know, coming to you all is really important. I know you guys are doing all those kinds of things, but I mean, how do we address the stigma? That's, you know, it's like, that's the pervasive thing that keeps hindering us from making progress.
Yeah. I mean, so to answer your question, I think to give you clarity, where we live in Bergen County is very close to New York City, but it's a completely different beast. It's almost, this area is very affluent, and it gives you this impression, we don't have gay people here, we don't have people of color here, we don't have, you know what I mean, we're very liberal, but these things don't exist here, kind of stuff. So what we do, I think, in just the way we live, is just representing, just being ourselves. Because, you know, Artie walking on the street, in all his non-binary gender amazingness in Hackensack, is an act of, you know, it's defiance. It's you know, it's just amazing. And, you know, because that's putting real danger into his life, right? But it's also saying that we are here and we're represented. And so part of our project here is going around and showing that we have a community here, and it's diverse and it's complex, and we're showing, giving voice to a lot of people that don't have voices. We're looking specifically at the numbers in our county and saying, you know, we have people of color here, but yet you never hear them. Let's hear them. We have a chemsex population here. Let's hear from them, where it's not about stigma. It's just, there's a human behind this, right? Yep. We have people, you know, we're all people. That's what we're all united. So I'm trying to show our community that we exist, and we are looking to create an LGBT center. I mean, when I started this project, we were just raising awareness, and it's morphing into, it's like, we got to do something. We have to build a community here, and we need to include everyone and normalize them, and saying, like, you know, let's not look at the problems, like, let's look past that into the solutions, you know. And
yeah, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head, right? I mean, inclusivity, making sure that people, whoever they are at the table, is so important. I mean, it's a big tenet of the U equals U campaign. I mean, we believe that everyone has a place in this movement, right? So for people with HIV, it doesn't matter if you're trans, if you're non-binary, if you use drugs, if you know, do sex for work, you know, it doesn't matter what you do or who you are, you can still benefit from U equals U. And that's, I think, what you guys are trying to do, and why it's just so critically important to be open and non-judgmental. You know, I think it's amazing, Artie, that you can walk down the street like that and be yourself. I mean, that's hard, right? It's hard because you that shame and that stigma and all that stuff is coming at you all the time from society, which is the point I've been making all along. It's the same for HIV people, you know, coming at you all the time from society that thinks that you're dirty and that you're going to lie and that you're going to, you know, deceive and you're not going to tell the truth and you're going to try to infect somebody. Those kinds of, you know, terrible things that we people with HIV do. Well, you know, trans people don't do bad things. People who engage in sex work don't do bad things. People who use drugs don't do bad things. I mean, yes, they do things that society looks at as bad, but I mean, we're living our lives, right? And so whatever it is we need and or want to do, we should be embraced, and we should have the tools that we need to stay healthy, whatever those tools are, whether it's, you know, medication, whether it's counseling, whether it's, you know, housing assistance or food assistance or help finding a job or whatever it is, you know, whatever it is, people need the support that they need. And that's how we're going to end the epidemic.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing I wanted to just really say, and I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No, please.
I really get going, but is that, you know, we often hear that certain communities will say, well, U equals U is a white gay men's sort of concept. You know, white gay men started this and therefore it doesn't apply to us. My argument to that is always, you know, U equals U is universal. And, you know, one of our third U is actually about universal access. So it's about making sure that everybody can have access to the treatment that they need so they can stay healthy. Everybody deserves that. Everybody should have that. Which means if the U equals U message as it is, like U equals U, you know, doesn't work for a community, take that message and adapt it to whatever does work for your community. You know, in Great Britain, they don't say U equals U, they say can't pass it on. Okay, that works. So that tells the story, right? So figure out how to say it to your community or in your community, and it works. It works if you work it. So, you know, take it and adapt it and use it. We didn't copyright U equals U when we started the movement because we wanted it to be for people with HIV, and we wanted people with HIV to take it and use it however they needed to use it to stay healthy.
That's amazing. And yes, we fully take that on. We you know, because it's what I guess we're kind of in alignment, because what you're saying is you're fighting stigma, right? And in our way, we're fighting stigma too, but we're trying to address, we're at the level, it's like LGBT people exist, you know, in our
sure, of course,
and
yeah.
You know, and,
Sure.
like, and it's like, we're not just a feminine, gay white male. We are very complex, and we're all, you know, and there's nothing wrong if you're a feminine gay white male. It's just that there's representation, you know, equally or equitable between the community. So yeah, we hear you very loud, and we're so happy to have you on here. And
well, and I know I'm coming at you from, you know, I'm an older gay white guy, so I'm one of those guys that everybody's like, oh, you're the one. No, that you don't apply to this. But, you know, I mean, what I'm working towards, and this is a little bit about the way I'm working, is I don't want to keep doing this work. I've been doing this work for 30 years. I mean, I want to move out of the way and let new leaders step in. So yeah, I'm white and have a ton of privilege. I definitely recognize that. And I know that not everybody else does, which is all the more reason why I feel like I need to be doing what I'm doing, because I want to like transfer that to others so that other people have opportunities as well. And you know, it's a real, like, another thing that we don't sometimes like to talk about is privilege. And, you know, it's coming more and more mainstream to talk about it, which I'm really happy about. But, you know, I mean, we all have a role to play, right? And it just means being equally at the table and sharing decisions and sharing conversations and figuring out solutions that are going to work for one community that might not work for another one. So if it's not working for the trans community, how do we get the trans community at the table so we can figure out what does work?
Yeah, and this is not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. It sounds very idealistic,
Yeah,
but
it is.
but
And to add to that, it's like from our perspective, it's not coming at the white population. It's more of like coming at the perception that that's all that exists here, and that's what we're
for
dealing with.
sure.
Is like, because they sit there and it's like, look, we got marriage equality, we gave you flag raising, what more do you want from us? You know what I mean? And for our experience is, you know, for good or bad, when it was everyone, you got the funding, but as soon as a population moves to private medical, you know, they get their own insurance, is taking it on, the people of color are the ones that are left behind, and they're the ones that are kind of suffering. And I'm trying to raise that up in our community, saying, hey, we need to make sure we don't forget people and within our community, but then also the larger community, the heterosexual community and the people that rule the world. It's like, it's more complex than, you know, raising a flag, people. There's a lot more than
going on. I mean, you know? Just look at what's happening with, you know, who's getting the COVID vaccine and who's not. I mean, you know, I mean, take a look at all the things that we've experienced in HIV. Who's left out is being completely repeated in the COVID pandemic, you know, as to who's able to get testing, who's, you know, who is on the front lines working, so to speak, who has to go out, you know. I mean, there's so many, there's so much inequity in our society, and HIV sort of, I think, really demonstrates that. If you look at the numbers, same with COVID. I mean, it's no surprise that that's the way it is. So we have to do better with really exposing, if you will, all of those inequities, all of those invisible people that are out there, you know, that aren't able to come and sit at the table, or whatever you want to call it, or to be a part of decisions. You know, it kind of drives me crazy when we talk about the HIV community as if all of us are like in this big tent and we're all taking care. It's like, no, there are in the United States, and, you know, I don't know what your numbers are in Bergen County, but there are 400,000 people who are not virally suppressed out of 1.2 million. So that's a lot of people that are not engaged in care and not getting what they need to stay healthy. And, you know, many of those people are invisible. I mean, we sometimes call them, I hate this term, but hard to reach, as if, you know, it's like, well, we need to figure out how to reach those people, right? And we need to be welcoming so that they feel safe to come in and get the services. We have this, many of us have the services. I mean, organizations have a lot of things to offer, but people don't feel safe coming because medical mistrust, mistrust of providers, so many bad experiences that people have had. And it all comes back down to stigma. You know, people are stigmatized.
And it's funny. It's like, I know, you know, you got to go because it's been talking, but I just want to raise one thing up, is that it's funny. We lived through one pandemic with HIV and AIDS and the stigma that was attributed to that. And then here we are, another pandemic that we're living through where it's everyone, and the stigma is so different. And it, you know, it's like, we're just talking about people being infected. You know, getting infected is not like, you know, it's a disease, you know, and then the way people are treated, and, you know, I don't know what I'm saying. It's just very different, because, you know, you hear people when they get HIV, it's almost like you have to keep this in the closet and stuff. And it's not the same response if you get cancer. It's not the same response if you get COVID, where people rush to help you. And it's like, even to this day, there's this such a horrible, you know, stigma around it. I just think about that a lot, you know.
Well, sadly, I think if HIV was impacting Americans the way COVID has impacted Americans, I mean, you know, everyone has gotten it, right? We all know somebody. There's movie stars, there's politicians, everybody's getting it, right? Or was, fortunately not anymore, but it's moving downward. But you know, lots of people were getting COVID. And if everybody was getting HIV like that, there'd be a different response. If politicians were just like getting HIV, now fortunately, HIV isn't as easy to transmit as COVID and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not suggesting that I would want people to get HIV. However, if you do, you can live a long and healthy life. That's the other thing is to remember is that until we start framing HIV in a different way, we're always going to have that stigma. But I tell you, if lots of people were getting it, we'd have a different response. We could mobilize the resources. Look what our country has done for like resources for testing, for vaccine development, for vaccinating everybody. I mean, it's like trillions of dollars we've invested in, and it's happened fast, which is great. We're all glad for that.
Right.
But it's sad that HIV didn't get
yeah.
the same sort of response, you know?
Exactly. And still not getting that response. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We still have a lot of eye-opening to do, and you know, we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm really grateful to you guys for, you know, putting this out in the atmosphere, so to speak, to actually talk about, you know, some of the challenges. I think, you know, I mean, I just encourage all the time to be open and to, you know, be a part of conversations for change, because that's how we're going to really get to a place where it's like, okay, HIV, oh, well, we can do this and we can do that and we can do this.
Yeah.
Versus, oh my gosh, HIV, not going to talk about that.
And, you know, thank you so much, because the reason we're doing this is for that hard to reach community. And this is going to impact that community in our small slice of the pie. That's exactly why we're doing this and why this is happening. But it's also a testament to you that you're taking the time out of your day to talk to two nobodies in the middle
These aren't nobodies.
but you know, in the middle of nowhere in Bergen County, where no one even knows this exists.
Like that, right?
And you're doing this, so thank you.
Thank
It
you.
really speaks to you. And thank you.
It's my honor and pleasure to be here. Honestly, it really is, because this is the part that I love the most about the work that we do at Prevention Access Campaign, is being able to actually, you know, talk to people and to really try to get a message out that all are welcome and that we're not going to leave anybody behind. You know, I mean, our intent is not to leave anybody behind. That means a lot of work, and it means we got to change a lot of things. We got to change government. We got to change policies. We have to change providers. We have to talk about, we have to talk about things that we don't normally talk about. Have to talk about using drugs. We have to talk about sex. We have to talk about mental health and challenges that people have to just live a normal life.
Yeah.
So we got to just be more open about it and stop stigmatizing people for the things that they do in their lives.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so coming to the end, I just wanted to ask you that, you know, get your permission to use this in a public space. You know, you're being recorded. Do you give consent to this?
Absolutely, of course.
Thank you. And you feel comfortable with everything that was talked about, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right,
I'm an open book. I'm an open book. I think that's what we got to be, right?
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to end the interview. If you want to say goodbye to all the people that are going to watch you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening. And if you want to look me up on social media or hit me up and chat, I'm available anytime for anyone.
Awesome. Thank you.